Well, last night, RT aired the presidential debate for third-party candidates, live from Chicago. The debate was moderated by Larry King, sponsored by the Free and Equal Elections Foundation, and while neither Mitt Romney nor President Obama showed up, it was attended by former New Mexico Governor Gary Johnson of the Libertarian Party, the Green Party's Dr. Jill Stein, former Virginia Congressman Virgil Goode with the Constitution Party, and former Salt Lake City Mayor Rocky Anderson with the Justice Party. I should mention this debate was aired on C-SPAN and Al Jazeera as well, but none of the major cable networks aired it, even though the host, Larry King, spent decades working for CNN. The four candidates agreed on more than they disagreed upon, but last night their ideas and their faces were thrust into the spotlight, something that doesn't often happen, despite being on the ballot in many states. One of the topics covered was an issue that has played a major role in our elections and in our democratic process as a whole: campaign finance. Here are a couple of the candidates speaking about that.
I would have never signed the National Defense Authorization Act, allowing for you and I, as U.S. citizens, to be arrested and detained without being charged. That's the reason we fought wars in this country.
It's an outrage that 1021 NDAA was ever passed to start with. It's an incredible betrayal of our civil liberties that the president has assumed dictatorial rights to put us in prison at his pleasure without charge or without trial. This is unallowable and is a basic offense against the very foundation of American liberty, and it should be repealed.
That they're actually about the National Defense Authorization Act. We can talk about campaign finance later, another subject they covered. To talk more about the debate as a whole, I'm joined now by Luis Rodriguez, vice presidential nominee for the Justice Party. Luis, we're going to be playing an interview later with Rocky Anderson. I know you're his running mate. How did you think everything went last night?
Well, I had the privilege of being there. It was very exciting and dynamic. I think it's important for people to know these other voices are in the campaign. You don't hear about it because it's all Democrats, Republicans, but as you know from last night, sometimes what people said there is the kind of things that most American people need to hear.
And I was just talking about so many topics covered last night that are not covered at a lot of the debates. I want to play a portion about campaign finance, something that really we should hear from the more mainstream candidates, but we don't.
There are political action committees, not just of businesses, but of unions. I'm for no political action committee. Individual contributions only and no super PACs. And I believe Congress can craft legislation with presidential leadership to stop political action committees. Big money that funnels through the PACs is the greatest hindrance, in my opinion, to free and open elections and freedom and democracy in this country. We threw off the king in the time of the revolution because of heavy-handedness. We need to throw the PACs out now and vote for third parties that will stand up for America.
When it comes to political campaign contributions, that candidates should be required to wear NASCAR-like jackets with patches on the jackets commensurate. So what's really needed is 100% transparency.
Talk, Luis, about the role of money in politics and how it relates, to the political system as a whole.
Well, I think most people are aware that we pretty much have the corporations controlling the political process. When big money comes in and the way they do it, underhanded, you don't really know where it's coming from, but yet it's getting to the hands of the Democrats and Republicans. A lot of people are excluded. A lot of ideas are not legitimatized. A lot of issues are not being addressed. So to me, I agree. We have to get rid of the corporations from controlling this process. There has to be reform that does not allow the corporations to be the main way that people run for office, can win for office. This country is supposed to be about democracy, freedom, equal access, and yet it's being controlled by the big boys with big money.
Talk a little bit about what you and Rocky would bring to the table here. You guys are members of the Justice Party. I think a lot of people aren't really sure what that means. You stand for. We don't have a whole lot of time, but just, sum it up. Tell us why you think people should vote for you guys.
Well, there should be justice in our environment. We don't have a clean environment. We don't have an environment that's run for the benefit of people. There should be justice in our economy. Everybody working. No more poverty. Bring the jobs into the communities where we have the hammer and nails and we can rebuild our communities from the ground up. There should be justice in our politics. Stop the closing of the democratic process. Open it up. Make sure that everybody who has a voice, has something to say, can be heard and can be seen, and should be able to be elected if they're the most qualified based on what they have to say and what they do.
Of course, this debate not really covered. We aired it live. I think it was on Al Jazeera and C-SPAN as well, but not aired, not even really covered the day after by most of the media. Why do you think that is?
Well, again, the corporations control what's going on. I mean, that's the problem, is that the big corporations are working in cahoots with the big media. Again, our voices are being pushed aside. And this is not democracy, I think people really have to see that even in other countries that they claim to be less democratic than the U.S. have an openness. They have more parties. They have more voices. We have to realize that we're actually being one of the few really democratic places where people can be heard and the process is opened up.
You were talking about fairness, about justice in this country, but when most Americans are polled, Luis, they say their number one priority, their number one issue that they're voting on, jobs and the economy. Why not more of a focus on those issues last night?
Well, I think a lot of it was the questions that were asked, but I know Rocky's been very strong around this. I know I've been talking a lot about this. Poverty are issues that we've raised when in the big debates you don't even hear the word of poverty, of poor. We're saying that everybody should be involved in helping rebuild our country. We do not have to wait until a big industry comes along. We don't have to go back to manufacturing the way it was before. We have new technology, new possibilities, new imaginations. I think it's about regenerating our economies by the creative, imaginative power that's already existing in our communities. So me and Rocky are both for bringing in those jobs, bringing home, bring the troops home, get them working, and get our kids the proper education, training, and jobs they need to survive and to thrive.
Out today, the endorsement for president by the Chattanooga Free Press. The Tennessee newspaper has endorsed Libertarian candidate Gary Johnson for president. The editorial board there says that Romney is too flawed, saying he may be less eager to tax, spend, and attack personal freedoms and disregard constitutional limits on government than his Democratic opponent, President Obama, but only slightly. What do you make of this, Luis, that a somewhat major newspaper is actually endorsing a third-party candidate?
Well, I think in this election, there's more openness for people to hear people like libertarians, to hear people like Justice Party, like the Green Party. I think there's a lot more interest in what we have to say. If you were there last night, you would, and I know you heard it, you would have seen the voices and ideas that most people are dealing with or addressing. So to me, this is proper. Why shouldn't a publication who looks at the whole spectrum realize, hey, some people are saying things much more effectively, much more meaningfully than the two corporate candidates?
Well, it was an interesting debate, and as we know, there will be one more next week here in D.C. Good to have you on the show sharing your thoughts. Luis Rodriguez, the vice presidential nominee for the Justice Party.
Thank you. My pleasure.